Hey guys, welcome back to the Readers. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is a pro-revenge story. Preface. In late 2023, I landed a position as assistant manager at a local automotive shop. Our primary business was selling tires and custom wheels for everyday vehicles. The company had multiple locations across the city. My direct superior was the store manager, Derek, who reported to the company owner, Mr. Thompson. Not long after starting, I noticed Derek's unprofessional conduct. He'd constantly pick on me for being the new guy, making snide comments like, "Still figuring out which end of the wrench to use?" I suspected his attitude stemmed from jealousy, as I'd managed to outsell him within my first 3 months. "Look who's actually sticking around to do some work," I'd hear him say while cracking open his third beer of the afternoon, feet up on his desk while the rest of us were still serving customers. Things got even more childish when he discovered I trained in MMA after hours. "Oh, we got ourselves a tough guy here," he'd taunt, pacing around me like a schoolyard bully. "Why don't you show us some of those fancy moves?" It became clear he was trying to provoke me into doing something that would cost me my job. His next actions only confirmed my suspicions. Story. During my first few months, I noticed our daily sales records never matched our cash takings. I'd spend extra time after closing trying to reconcile the differences, while Derek would shrug it off. "Math's not my strong suit," he'd say with a dismissive wave. "It'll sort itself out." The inconsistencies always centered around cash transactions. Some days we'd have excess cash that wasn't recorded in our sales software. Other days we'd be short. As an accounting student working on my bachelor's degree, these discrepancies raised red flags. However, given Derek's hostile attitude, I worried any concerns I raised would somehow be turned against me. My instincts proved correct. In January 2024, Derek took a week's vacation. During his absence, I not only set a personal sales record, but noticed something striking. Our cash balanced perfectly at the end of every shift. I reported this to Mr. Thompson, as protocol required assistant managers to report directly to the owner during the manager's absence. "That's interesting," Mr. Thompson said, leaning forward in his chair. "How long has this been going on?" I explained the pattern I'd observed, though I was already anticipating Derek's reaction when he found out about our conversation. Sure enough, upon his return, Derek stormed into the store and cornered me by the service counter. "You've got some nerve," he snarled, jabbing a finger at my chest. "Trying to pin your sloppy bookkeeping on me? The owner just reamed me out because of you. Maybe if you did your job properly, we wouldn't have these problems." His reaction only heightened my suspicions. He wanted me to do my job properly? I'd show him proper. Over the next 2 weeks, I meticulously documented every transaction he handled. I noticed a pattern with cash sales. He'd tell customers, "It'll be $200 even if you pay cash." Then he'd enter a $50 discount in the system. He'd put the full $200 in the till but record only $150 in the sales software. Later, when nobody was watching, he'd pocket the difference. His sloppiness in keeping track of these extras explained why our cash counts were always off. Sometimes he'd take too much, sometimes too little. "Hey, Mr. Thompson," I said during our next meeting, "I've got something you need to see." I presented him with screenshots of suspicious discounts and a detailed report showing how the cash variances perfectly aligned with Derek's work schedule. Mr. Thompson's face turned red as he reviewed the evidence. "How long has this been happening right under my nose?" he muttered. That same afternoon, he ordered Derek to take a drug test. The results revealed high levels of methamphetamine in his system. "I trusted you for 5 years," Mr. Thompson shouted when confronting Derek. "You've put my entire business at risk." The implications were serious. We operated heavy machinery daily, and having an impaired manager supervising these operations could have resulted in devastating accidents and legal consequences. Derek was fired on the spot for breach of contract, and Mr. Thompson pursued legal action to recover the stolen funds. "I should have noticed something was off," Mr. Thompson told me a week later. "How would you like to take over as store manager?" The next one is an entitled people's story. I never thought I'd be writing about something like this, but here we go. I own a small woodland retreat cabin about 2 hours outside of Seattle that I inherited from my grandfather 5 years ago. It's in a semi-remote area with about 20 other cabins spread across 100 acres, all part of the Pine Valley Woodland Community Association. I use it mainly on weekends and holidays to escape the city and decompress. Everything was fine until last October when I drove up for a long weekend and found a brand new hot tub installed on my back deck. Not just any hot tub, we're talking about a massive 8-person jacuzzi with all the bells and whistles. At first I thought I was at the wrong cabin, but no, this was definitely my place. And there was definitely an unauthorized hot tub taking up a quarter of my deck space. I immediately called Sandra, the homeowner association president. Sandra, why is there a hot tub on my deck that I didn't authorize? Oh yes, Mr. Mitchell, isn't it wonderful? The board voted to install community hot tubs at strategic locations throughout the property. Your cabin was chosen as one of the locations due to its central position. The contractor finished the installation yesterday. I nearly choked. Community hot tubs? On private property? Without owner notification or consent? Well, we sent out an email about the community enhancement project 3 months ago, she said dismissively. It was all properly voted on at the last board meeting. I checked my emails later. There was indeed one vague email about community wellness amenities buried in a monthly newsletter, but nothing specifically mentioning hot tubs or using private properties. Sandra, this is completely unacceptable. You can't just install fixtures on private property without explicit owner permission. I want it removed immediately. I'm afraid that's not possible, Mr. Mitchell. This is now community property, and the installation is already complete. The plumbing and electrical work is all done. Members can reserve time slots through our new online booking system. I was livid. Are you telling me that random people from the association can now come use a hot tub on my private deck whenever they want? Well, yes. Between the hours of 9 a.m. and 10 p.m., we've installed security cameras to monitor usage and ensure safety protocols are followed. That's when I noticed the new security camera mounted on my cabin wall. They had actually drilled into my siding to install surveillance equipment, again without permission. This is absolutely insane. You've damaged my property, violated my privacy, and created a massive liability issue. I'm calling my lawyer. Now, Mr. Mitchell, there's no need to get lawyers involved. This is all covered under the homeowner association bylaws regarding community improvements. I cut her off. Show me exactly where in the bylaws it says you can install permanent fixtures on private property without owner consent. I'll wait. She stammered something about checking with their legal team and hung up. I immediately documented everything with photos and videos, including the damage to my deck and siding from the installation. Then I called my friend James, who happens to be a real estate attorney specializing in homeowner association disputes. They did what? James exclaimed when I explained the situation. That's so far beyond their authority it's not even funny. The liability issues alone. What if someone gets injured using that hot tub on your property? What about the increased electricity costs? Property insurance implications? This is a legal nightmare. James helped me draft a formal cease and desist letter demanding immediate removal of the hot tub and all associated equipment, plus restoration of my property to its original condition. We sent it certified mail to the Homeowner Association Board and their registered agent. Their response came 3 days later from their attorney, claiming that the installation was legal under some obscure clause about community recreational facilities. They refused to remove it, so we filed suit in Superior Court against both the Homeowner Association and the contractor who did the installation. The complaint included counts for trespass, property damage, unauthorized modifications, and violation of Homeowner Association governing documents. We also filed for an emergency injunction to prevent anyone from using the hot tub while the case was pending. The Homeowner Association's defense started crumbling almost immediately. First, we discovered that only 4 out of 9 board members had actually voted on this community hot tub initiative. The rest weren't even present at that meeting, so they didn't have a proper quorum. Then we found out the contractor didn't pull proper permits for the electrical work. But the real smoking gun came when we deposed Sandra and the Homeowner Association treasurer. Turns out Sandra's husband owned the contracting company that did the installations. They had paid $25,000 each for 5 hot tubs at different properties, way above market rate, and Sandra's husband's company pocketed a hefty profit. The whole thing was basically a scheme to funnel Homeowner Association funds to her family business. Did you disclose this conflict of interest to the board or the membership? James asked during Sandra's deposition. Well, no, but it wasn't relevant because his bid was the most competitive. Really? Because we only found 2 other bids in the Homeowner Association records, both for around $15,000 per installation. Care to explain? She couldn't, of course. The judge granted our injunction, and the Homeowner Association's insurance company started getting nervous. They could see this was going to be an expensive loss if it went to trial. 2 weeks before our court date, their lawyers called to discuss settlement. They offered to remove the hot tub and all associated equipment within 7 days, repair all damage to my property, pay $15,000 in compensation for the unauthorized use and damages, issue a formal apology, revise the homeowner association bylaws to explicitly prohibit installations on private property without written owner consent, remove Sandra and the treasurer from the board. I accepted the settlement after James confirmed it was a solid deal. The hot tub was gone within a week, though it took another 2 weeks to properly repair my deck and siding. Sandra resigned from the board the day after the settlement was signed, and from what I hear, she and her husband moved away a few months later after several other homeowners threatened additional lawsuits over various sketchy contracts. The new homeowner association board is much more professional and transparent. They actually hired a proper management company to handle things instead of letting power-hungry residents run wild. My cabin is back to being my peaceful woodland retreat, though I did install my own security cameras, properly permitted and installed, just in case anyone else gets creative ideas about community improvements on my property. The most satisfying part? At the first board meeting after the settlement, one of the new members proposed using the insurance settlement money to install a legitimate community hot tub in the actual common area by the clubhouse. It passed unanimously, and now everyone can enjoy it without infringing on private property rights. Looking back, I'm glad I stood my ground. This wasn't just about a hot tub, it was about preventing homeowner association overreach and holding people accountable when they abuse their positions. I've heard horror stories about homeowner associations, but this one really took the cake. The silver lining is that it led to positive changes in how our community is managed. I still get a laugh whenever I think about Sandra trying to justify installing community hot tubs on private property. The audacity of some people is truly astounding, but the lesson here is clear. Know your rights as a property owner, document everything, and don't be afraid to fight back when someone tries to take advantage, even if they claim to have authority. Update. It's been 6 months since my last post about the unauthorized hot tub saga, and a lot has happened that I wanted to share. First, remember how Sandra and her husband moved away after the settlement? Well, it turns out they didn't go far enough. 3 other homeowners ended up filing their own lawsuits after discovering more instances of self-dealing through Sandra's husband's company. The new board's audit revealed that over the past 3 years, Sandra had steered nearly $180,000 in homeowner association contracts to her husband's business, all at inflated prices. The district attorney's office got involved after the audit findings were reported. They found evidence of kickbacks from other contractors too. Last month, both Sandra and her husband were charged with multiple counts of fraud and embezzlement. They're currently out on bail awaiting trial. My friend James ended up representing 2 of the other homeowners in their civil suits, which were settled last week. He called to tell me the details. You'll appreciate this. They had to sell their vacation home in Palm Springs to pay all the settlements, James said. The insurance company also dropped their coverage and is suing them separately for misrepresentation. Karma's really coming for them, huh? I replied. Oh, it gets better. Remember that competitive bid documentation Sandra claimed existed for the hot tub installations? Turned out to be completely fabricated. The other 2 companies she listed don't even work on hot tubs. The new homeowner association management company has been a complete game changer. They implemented proper bidding procedures, detailed documentation requirements, and regular financial audits. Every major expenditure now requires multiple bids and full board review in open meetings. They also hired a certified property manager who actually knows homeowner association law and proper procedures. The legitimate community hot tub by the clubhouse was completed last month, and it's actually really nice. They did it right. Proper permits, professional installation, regular maintenance schedule, and clear usage rules. The best part? It cost about $12,000 less than what Sandra's husband charged for each of the unauthorized private property installations. I ran into Bill, one of the longtime residents at the clubhouse last weekend. He's lived here for 20 years and served on the board several times. You know, standing up to Sandra like you did was the catalyst we needed, he told me. Everyone knew things weren't right, but nobody wanted to rock the boat. After you won your case, people finally felt empowered to speak up. The whole experience has actually gotten me more involved in the community. I joined the Architectural Review Committee, which now has clear guidelines and a transparent approval process. We recently revised the rules to require written notification to all adjacent property owners before any external modifications can be approved, even for common areas. Some good news on the insurance front too. Our community's rates actually went down after implementing the new management policies. The insurance company was impressed with the improved governance and risk management procedures. Those savings are being passed on to homeowners through reduced monthly dues. The property damage from the hot tub incident was fully repaired, and you can't even tell where it was now. I did add a clause to my homeowner's insurance specifically covering unauthorized modifications, just in case. My insurance agent said they've started recommending similar coverage to other clients with homeowner association properties after hearing my story. One interesting development. 3 other Woodland communities in the area contacted our new management company for guidance on improving their operations. Apparently, our story made the rounds in local property management circles as a what not to do example. The management company now offers training sessions for homeowner association boards on proper governance and fiduciary responsibility. Last week, I received an unexpected letter from one of Sandra's former board allies apologizing for not speaking up sooner about the corruption. She wrote, "I knew things weren't right, but I was afraid of becoming a target if I said anything. Watching you stand your ground gave me the courage to finally share what I knew with the investigators." The new board president, Tom, has been transparent about everything. He holds monthly informal coffee meetings where owners can raise concerns or ask questions. At the last meeting, he shared an update on the legal proceedings. The DA's office believes there may be similar fraud schemes at other homeowner associations where Sandra and her husband were involved. They're working with the state attorney general's office to investigate further. Looking back, fighting this battle was absolutely worth it. Not just for getting the hot tub removed, but for helping expose and stop corrupt practices that were hurting our whole community. The settlement money helped, but the real victory was proving that homeowners can successfully stand up to homeowner association overreach and corruption. My cabin is back to being my peaceful retreat, now with the added satisfaction of knowing I helped make positive changes for everyone. The community feels different too, more neighborly, more transparent, more like what it should have been all along. For anyone dealing with similar homeowner association issues, my advice is simple. Document everything, know your rights, and don't be afraid to fight back when you're in the right. Sometimes it takes one person willing to stand up to change an entire system. Next week is the annual community barbecue, and for the first time in years, people are actually looking forward to it. Amazing what can happen when you replace toxic leadership with competent management. Though I still check my security cameras regularly, old habits die hard. The next one is a malicious compliances story. Many moons ago, I worked at a restaurant that is part of a national chain named after a fruit and insect. I had put in my 2 weeks' notice after finding a better position elsewhere, and we were about to slightly tweak our menu, and so we're having mandatory staff meetings to acquaint ourselves with the new food. The only time that we could schedule these meetings was in the morning prior to the restaurant opening so that all the staff could attend. As a closing bartender who would sometimes be there until 2 or 3 a.m. cleaning up, I did not relish having to turn around and go back to work just for an hour-long untipped, earning just minimum wage, meeting on less than 6 hours of sleep. Since I was on my way out the door and would not be employed by them when the new menu actually started, I asked my boss if I actually had to come to these meetings. He told me, if you want to work your remaining scheduled shifts, you do. Being a college student who lived paycheck to paycheck, I could not afford to lose out on a week and a half wages, so I sucked it up and went. Part of the rollout was a booklet we were supposed to fill out about the menu items, which included the prompt, "How would you describe this dish?" Presumably, you are supposed to come up with clever, tantalizing romanticizations of the items. Stuff like, it's a 1/4 pound of Angus beef smothered by melted cheese and tender onions, but there were no specifics about what you could or should not write. Cue malicious compliance. I sat slightly out of my manager's line of sight and looked up the nutritional values of the menu items from our corporate website on my phone. I filled my notebook out as follows. The classic bacon cheeseburger has 1,320 calories, 140% of your daily saturated fat, 28 grams, and 124% of your daily sodium, 2,860 milliliters. The BS Mushroom Swiss Burger has 1,580 calories, 155% of daily recommended saturated fat, 31 grams, and 126% of your recommended sodium, 3,100 milliliters. The Quesadilla Burger has 1,580 calories, 190% of your daily saturated fat, 38 grams, and 191% of your daily recommended sodium intake, 3,470 milliliters, etc. The next day, my boss called me into the office to discuss my booklet. He asked, "Are these the real nutritional facts numbers?" I replied, "You're the manager, you should know, but yes, I pulled them right off the company website." He said something along the lines of, "God, that's disgusting. I should be looking for a new job too. We shouldn't be selling this crap." I worked the end of my shifts, and then came back as a customer a week or two later. I proceeded to order a pitcher of the strongest beer we had on tap for myself, and then loudly played trivia with some of the bar regulars who were my buddies, asking them the same nutritional facts about the food. The bartender, my former co-worker who was a stuck-up bee, kept giving me dirty looks, but she couldn't say crap to me since I wasn't the loudest one in the group and we weren't discussing anything vulgar. Note to everyone, the food at Apricot Beetles is really unhealthy. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.